Hello everyone and welcome to the England Pod Lionesses edition. I'm Robyn Cowen and I'm very proud and privileged to be asked to be part of the England Pod team and hopefully carrying on the great work started by Ali, George and David. This is your one-stop shop for England football chat. You've already had the men's seniors, under 21s covered on the pod, and now it's time for the women's seniors, and it's exciting times as we build up to England's defence of the Euros this summer. Joining me to discuss all things Lioness are the England Pod's David Walker and women's football reporter for the Telegraph, Kathryn Batte. David, first of all, let's lay out our stall for the England Pod, continuing, as I say, the fine work that you three gentlemen have started.
Thanks very much. It's great to have you on board, Robyn, and great to have you with us, Kathryn, as well. I mean, it's, as we said when we relaunched, it's all England all the time. And, the Lionesses, the women's team, they're a massive part of England. We're England fans. We want to make supporting all the England teams as fun as possible. And a few months ahead of the Euros, I think we could have a very fun summer, hopefully, following the England women team defending their crown. They go to Switzerland wanting to defend the European Championships. And, from my perspective, I wanted to be involved in these pods because I think I probably represent a reasonable portion of our audience and maybe of the sort of wider football audience who mainly support men's teams, in that over the since the World Cup in 2019, but then obviously with the winning the Euros and then getting to the final of the World Cup in 2023, like my interest in the women's game and the national team has gone up massively. But I'm not someone that goes to WSL matches every week. I'm across it. The coverage is a lot better these days, so I feel like I have a passing knowledge of the women's game and what's going on, but I don't know as much as you two. But I think there'll be a lot of people who listen to the England pod who'll probably be the same. We want England women to do really well, and we're on board. And hopefully, as I said, it'll be a great summer. Although, from my perspective, it feels like we're not going to the summer, even though we're defending champions, as overwhelming favourites. Is that fair?
Let's get straight into it, shall we? Kathryn, I mean, you've been covering the Lionesses and women's football. Apart from, I think, was it a brief period covering West Ham men's team, which was a bit random. We're now back on the England beat.
Yeah, it didn't go very well for West Ham. I didn't bring them much luck. That was, I think I ever saw two managers leaving, so that wasn't the best time. But yeah, very much now happy to be back full time on women's football. But yeah, as David was saying, I think I'm not sure England are the favourites going into the Euros, and that's probably because their form has been a little bit hit and miss really in the last 2 years. Well, since the World Cup, I suppose. And the last camp, I think we saw the best and the worst of England at times, and they struggled again against a Portugal team who were really well organised and played a low block and made it difficult for them to attack and get past them. And then they went and beat the world champions in Spain. So they're a little bit unpredictable. Sometimes we don't know what to expect from them. Obviously, they're missing at the minute some key players through injury, which we're hoping they'll be back for the Euros. Georgia Stanway, Lauren Hemp and Alex Greenwood. So that also makes it kind of hard to assess where they're at right now. But I think it's a very open tournament. I'm not sure there is one overwhelming favourite. I mean, you naturally think Spain because they're the world champions, but obviously I wasn't massively impressed with them at Wembley, whether they just had an off night or, whether that's a sign that actually, maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. I think Germany will be strong. There's a potential maybe for a surprise team to go a little bit further. I'm looking at Norway in Group A and thinking their route to, the knockouts looks pretty favourable if they can get their best players kind of working together. So as much as, England are in a tough group as well, and we're not sure what to expect from them, you still go to that tournament thinking, Sarina Wiegman's very experienced manager and she's got a great record at tournaments. So it's really hard to predict, but I'm not sure they're the favourites, but equally they could quite easily go all the way as well.
That win against Spain felt pretty big, didn't it? I mean, the fact that they've beaten the world champions in a moment when they maybe weren't, they needed something to sort of remind themselves that actually, we can do this.
I think so. It's a real roller coaster, isn't it? And I'm guilty as much as anyone as an England fan. Any result, a knee-jerk reaction. And that's basically what's happened, hasn't it? As Kathryn said, you had a draw against Portugal who, I think two things can be true. England should be beating Portugal, but also they're not as bad as, well, not that's not the right phrase, but I feel like every international women's team has got a lot better, even since Euros, the last Euros. So actually, they are harder games. But then Spain beats Spain at Wembley, and everyone's like, yeah, we're going to win it again, aren't we? So this is what it's like, isn't it? It's that it's those knee-jerk reactions. I feel like that Spain result was significant because I think we should go through the squad, actually, shouldn't we, Kathryn? Because it is still not at full strength, actually not by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and I think, kind of assessing who's the biggest miss of those three that we've sort of talked about, and you're looking at the midfield, which is looking a little bit light at the minute because obviously Georgia Stanway and Keira Walsh have been the two central midfielders, for the last couple of years. Without Georgia Stanway in there, the two kind of replacements that we had, or the two backup options, were obviously Laura Blinkill-Brown and Ruby Mace, and they're both injured as well. So obviously that means Maisie Simons has come in and has got a chance in the squad. Jess Park can play potentially in that deeper area. You've got Grace Clinton. So it's not that there's no options there, but in terms of the experience, the number of caps that the likes of Park and Clinton have got, and also neither of them have ever been to a major tournament. So that's kind of the difference between those players and somebody like Georgia Stanway, who's so experienced despite only being, I think, 25, 26. So I think she's probably the biggest miss right now. But equally, Alex Greenwood, having a left-footed defender seems like a rarity in women's football these days, and England haven't got another left-footed defender in the squad. So I think she's a miss. And then when you look at Lauren Hemp, I think on her day, when she's fully fit, she's one of the best attacking players in the world. So all three of them, once you add that back to the squad, I think, we could sit here and say, okay, that's a really, really strong squad. Right now, I think there's still maybe a couple of question marks over certain players, but I do think there's a belief that all three will be fit and will be back for the Euros. The question mark is, how much game time they'll have had before the summer, and are they going to be match fit, and can you expect them to perform at the high level and the high standard that they've set for themselves? Or are the minutes going to be, potentially more limited? I think that's kind of the unknown right now.
David, I wanted to bring something up to you, actually, with your football cliches hat on. Did you see Maisie Simons when she was asked about, they're called up by Sarina Wiegman, by the coach, it's her first ever call up, and she went for the... Yeah, no, she didn't go down the, I thought it was a prank.
Okay.
Route. She just said thank you all over and over again, which I think is a new one, isn't it?
That's great. Yeah,
lovely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we want to hear. And it was funny actually hearing Tuchel was asked quite a lot of that question around his first squad with the men, and the people were asking him what did you say to Jordan Henderson, and how was Dan Burn on the phone and all that, and he sort of spoiled the sort of the
magic
the magic of it all. Yeah, because he said, well, I text them all before to line up the call. I said I'm going to call you in 10 minutes, and then I popped up on FaceTime. So it's not just a call out of the blue. But I suppose you could think the initial text was a wind up. But I like to that's good that Maisie was giving us some sort of genuine reaction, because you would do, wouldn't you? You'd be over the moon.
I think so. I think generally, yeah. Then she said that she was about to say, "Are you sure?" And then she stopped herself, because I guess that's giving Sarina an out. But I'm not sure she'd do that. I want to lay my cards on the table to everyone. I'm a massive Sarina Wiegman fan. That's probably an understatement. I'm sort of a little bit in love with her, so I'm not very. I'm a bit biased. She can do no wrong in my eyes. I admire her greatly. So I'm open for her to be criticised and to be critiqued, and, for her decisions to be questioned perhaps. But it ain't going to be by me, just saying that most of the time. Because actually, this is what you mentioned, Kathryn, was the thing I'm interested in, is that it's been pulled up a few times that she doesn't really rotate. And this is a debate in the men's, isn't it? Now the Nations League is in, and it's not these sort of meaningless friendlies or these qualifiers that are against, the likes of Latvia, where you win 10 or even 20-0, I think they did, under Sarina Wiegman in the previous campaign. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because sometimes I think people have mentioned that she seems to basically not give a lot of people minutes. It will be interesting to see how much, if at all, we see the likes of Maisie Simons, won't it?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we did see her, to be honest, in these two games because England have got to win them both. I think that maybe we would see her if they're 2 or 3 nil up potentially in one of the games. But given Belgium have given England tough tests previously, I'd be surprised if England had a lead as kind of as strong as that. Yeah, she has been a little bit criticised, Sarina, for not rotating the team, and I think. Obviously in the Euro, she had that starting 11 that played every single game, and she had the same subs coming off the bench, and it worked to a T. And naturally, that you can't do that for every tournament and every game, and teams get wise to it. So she has had to adapt, and I think as she's gone on, I think she has rotated a little bit more than she definitely used to at the start. I think the only concern is that when players get injured or I think my biggest one is in the forward area. So you've got Alessia Russo as your striker. As soon as Rachel Daly retired, there's nobody really behind her, A, pushing Russo, or B, kind of, if Russo was to, touch wood, get injured or have an issue at the Euros, suspended or something, you could play Lauren Hemp there if she's fit. You could play Beth Mead there. You could play Lauren James there, but not really tried and tested for England. And then you've got Aggie Beaver-Jones, who's got, a handful of caps who... No, don't get me wrong. She's very experienced now in terms of having played for Chelsea and in good form as well. And I actually do think, assuming Russo is fit and fine, that Beaver-Jones could be one of the impact subs this summer and could surprise a few countries. But if she was suddenly kind of thrust in and having to start, that would be a very big ask for her to do. So I think that's my only kind of concern, is that when you look at the players that aren't starters, that are kind of the fringe players, there's just the number of caps that they've got. Even kind of going to... not the last World Cup, because I think Ellie Roebuck was there, but before kind of, not in that kind of period, we had a situation where Mary Earps was the main goalkeeper. Obviously, Hannah Hampton's challenging her now for that number one spot, but there was a period where I think it was that Scotland game actually in the Nations League. I think the reserve keepers were Hannah Hampton and potentially Keira Keating, and I think Hampton had about 2 or 3 caps and Keating had 0. And you're kind of thinking, Mary Earps gets injured here. You're throwing in a goalkeeper that's kind of hardly played because she'd not really had that chance to get opportunities. Obviously now Hampton's a lot more experienced and has had more international games. Still never played in a tournament, obviously, though. So that's another interesting point as to kind of who's going to be the number one. So yeah, I think Sarina's getting better at rotating, but still those kind of fringe players getting the opportunities. That's kind of where my concern is at.
I'm interested in the Earps and Hampton situation because. Earps coming off the back of the World Cup as being kind of she was the big star in terms of winning Sports Personality of the Year, saving the penalty in the final, having her viral moment with her reaction to having the save, and then getting moving to PSG, and is that sort of out of sight, out of mind situation? Hampton's playing for Chelsea, and they're obviously doing really well. Do you think there'd be any? In Sarina's decision making, she feels like she's quite a sort of straight and clinical sort of person, so I'm sure she's just going to choose the best keeper. But do you think like Mary Earps' standing within like the group would come into her thinking when deciding who to play, or she's purely just going to go, I need to pick the person who's in the best form?
Well, Kathryn, I mean, you've spoken, I'm sure, to Sarina Wiegman a lot more than me. She is a very clinical character, isn't she? She doesn't seem to hesitate. She makes those ruthless decisions. So I would say no. Having said that, she is very loyal, isn't she? We've seen that with a few of her call-ups. The likes of actually, like Chloe Kelly, even when she wasn't playing, she was called up, and then she wasn't the last camp, but then in the end she was because of injury, and now she's been called up in her own right. With Hannah, it's a really difficult one to know in terms of what Sarina Wiegman's thinking, isn't it? Because as you said, Hannah Hampton started the Spain game, Mary Earps started the Portugal game in the last camp. So I'm not sure if she quite knows. They both have very good attributes, don't they? They both got good distribution, good shot stopping. Mary Earps clearly has a bit more experience. To be honest, I've not followed her very closely at PSG. I know she had a couple of quite high profile errors to start with, but maybe that's settled down. I'm not sure about what's your kind of view on the goalkeeping situation?
I think, they were highlighted those areas for PSG because they were in the Champions League, and then obviously PSG went out, and naturally we obviously don't see much of the French league over here. I'm sure Sarina probably watches more of it than we do. I think it's a really interesting kind of debate because I think Hannah Hampton is probably ahead in terms of her distribution. I think Mary Earps is maybe ahead in terms of her physical presence. I think that's maybe something Hannah Hampton struggled with a little bit when we've seen her play for England. There's a game against Sweden, when they secured qualification, where Sweden were putting a lot of crosses into the box and really almost trying to rough Hannah Hampton up a little bit. And she's a little bit more slight than Mary Earps. Mary Earps is really kind of commands her area very well. Both of them shot stopping wise, I think, are probably on par. It's just whether Mary Earps' experience in tournaments kind of helps her in this situation, in terms of, is she going to have, she's almost got that character, that personality, and I guess obviously we have seen her make mistakes for England as well. But sometimes when she makes a save and she kind of turns around to the crowd and she's got that sort of like attitude that I guess not everyone likes, but I think sometimes it can, you need to have that as a goalkeeper. I think a little bit, you need to really, really back yourself, and I think she's maybe got that a little bit more than Hannah Hampton has it, but I think maybe we just don't see it in the same way. So I don't think we'll ever have a situation where Wiegman's changing between goalkeepers in the group. I think she will pick one and stick to it. But I think she's just not decided yet, and that's why we're seeing maybe one of them play one game. Yeah, I thought when Earps played against the USA, that was her kind of overtaking Hampton, because Hampton had played against Germany, made a couple of errors, but then Hampton played against Spain and played very well. So I think Sarina will kind of wait right until the end, maybe into the summer before she makes her final decision on that one.
I always remember being at the media day before the 2019 World Cup, and it was in that sports hall St George's Park, and all the players were available and all the media were there walking around the room talking to the players and stuff. And I remember I was with TalkSport, and we did speak to Mary Earps because we'd kind of done all of our interviews, and then we just sort of turned around and just saw her basically sitting on her own, and nobody wanted to talk to her. Like if she was the third choice goalkeeper, often that's the role in basically the least important player in the entire squad. And then seeing fast forwarding to 2023, and she's winning Sports Personality of the Year, and she's one of the most famous women's footballers in the country. I just always remember that that moment of seeing her, and kind of she was sort of just twiddling her thumbs, kind of no one was talking to her. But I suppose the journey has been an amazing one for her, but maybe it could start to take a little bit of a turn if she finds herself out of the team for the tournament in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I work a lot with Rachel Brown-Finnis, who's obviously an ex-England goalkeeper, and she just says it is brutal. It's brutal. We've seen that with Manchester City this season. Like Kiara Keating was the first choice last season. She won the Golden Glove, and she's come back into it now and been really good, actually, because Yamashita's been injured, but they recruited Yamashita and she wasn't anywhere to be seen the first few months of the season. It's just football's brutal, but I think goalkeeping position in particular. But no, yeah, I mean, it's one thing for Sarina Wiegman, but she really is. I mean, you would have seen this like at Wembley, Kathryn, the sort of reaction to her, to Mary Earps. People want to see her and get her signature, and people are buying her shirt. There was a whole shirt thing, wasn't there, last summer? She's like a real iconic sort of player, not just player, but like, as you say, Sports Personality of the Year. That's proper cut through, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there was a moment where Hampton was playing, I think it was against the Republic of Ireland at Norwich, and Earps was on the bench and she went to warm up, and there was these massive cheers for Earps, and a sort of question of, well, did the goalkeeper need to go and warm up there? But that kind of shows, don't usually see goalkeepers warm up, but that kind of, she's got that status, hasn't she, a little bit more than Hampton has, and that that's not Hampton's fault. I'm not sure how much of that comes into it when Sarina's office deciding who she picks, but she does kind of, a lot of people know who she is. She's got that kind of that status, I guess, and that attitude as well that I think a lot of people resonate with. And Hampton's maybe I don't think she's actually a quiet character, but she kind of comes across like that on the pitch. I actually think off the pitch she's quite outgoing and she's got a really, a really good personality. And maybe if she plays a bit more, we'll actually kind of start to see that. But I think Mary Earps said something along the lines to one of the broadcasters after the last camp that the saga wasn't over. Which is quite a Mary Earps thing to say. So I guess it's going to go on probably until Sarina picks the squad and we've got maybe a warm up game before the Euros.
So is this Belgium doubleheader very odd? I mean, not quite as bad as the Chelsea Manchester City quadrilogy. I've never heard that word said more this week, the last couple of weeks, by the way. So yeah, at Ashton Gate on Friday, and then in Leuven next Tuesday. And this is the Nations League. So England currently sits second in Group A3 to Portugal, level on points. So if England win both of their games, they'll go top of the group. Semi-finals are in June before the tournament, and then the finals, if they make it there, I think are sort of around the winter time. So it's important in a lot of aspects, isn't it? It's like it's the equivalent to sort of the men's before a big tournament. I mean, again, as I said before, Kathryn, it's England should be winning these games against Belgium, but actually we've seen that they can be awkward. Not least they ran Spain really close, were 2-0 up against them, and then eventually lost 3-2. So it does sort of show that the other sort of nations that traditionally don't go deep in tournaments, they might qualify, are starting to really get a lot stronger.
Yeah, and I think Belgium's a team that actually almost relish playing against the top nations because they can kind of cause them problems and then sort of sit in and defend and try and make it difficult. And obviously they beat England at home a couple of years ago in the Nations League, and it was quite a close game at home as well. So we were all really disappointed when they conceded that lead to Spain. We were watching the end of it when England were playing in Portugal, and we were thinking this would be a great start in the Nations League if Belgium can beat Spain or even get a draw. And then obviously Spain, as soon as they got the first goal, you just kind of knew they were going to come back and win. But that was a sign that they can cause a lot of problems. Tessa Vuller absolutely destroyed England for pace in that game a couple of years ago, and she did the same to Spain as well. So I'm intrigued as to how Sarina sets up because she's a very, very quick player, and I think we didn't have Leah Williamson in that game, and I think maybe she's a little bit quicker than Millie Bright, so having the two of them might kind of work a bit better than we had, I think, Millie Bright and Jess Carter at centre back for that game. But they can cause problems, and as you were saying, like those nations that are sort of in the middle of the world rankings, they're a lot better than they used to be. I actually think they've got a very good manager, Belgium, as well. She was, I'm going to pronounce her name right, I think it's Elizabeth Dottier, possibly, one of the Dottiers. She was linked briefly. There's a lot of Dottiers in Iceland, but she was linked with the Chelsea women job. At one point, I think she interviewed for it. So she's actually quite a highly rated manager, and I don't think either of these games are going to be straightforward at all. I do think England are going to come up against a team that are going to be really well organised and try to frustrate them.
Again, David, just through the sort of like general England sort of point of view, we go in and we think, well, we should be smashing these, shouldn't we? And if we don't, we're gonna have a knee-jerk reaction, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, I think Nations League is always, it's been around now for since 2018, sort of 2019 sort of time, but we still, in general, no one's really sure how serious we should be taking it, right? And you have this little potential little mini tournament if you get through to the final section of it, which is a sort of nice thing to be a part of if you do get to it. But if you're not there, you're actually probably quite relieved that you don't have to go and have some more competitive games or whatever. But I note that the World Cup 2027 qualification groups is also tied up with the standings of this Nations League. So I suppose in that sense, it will be good for England to try and finish top of this group, or so that they get the easiest possible qualification group for the World Cup. So I suppose it's tricky in that these games. I suppose Wiegman's probably thinking about these games with the Euros in mind, and maybe looking at players and new players as we've discussed, but also do need to win them. You can't treat them as friendlies and it as too much of an experimentation, can you?
Oh, won't somebody please think of the fringe players? It's just never going to happen for them, is it? No, it should be. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, especially how Sarina Wiegman approaches them. Just the final thing I wanted to talk about. Anyone from the squad that you feel is a bit unlucky to miss out, or anything like that? I think it's. Could we see also like an all Arsenal trio? Perhaps we saw Beth Mead score her 50th and 51st goals in the WSL at the weekend. She's not seen a lot of game time, I think, for injuries. And then, the resurgence of Chloe Kelly has been just a delight to see. If I was her, I would have retired after that goal. Not even, I would have celebrated it, at the Euro 2022 I'm talking about. And then just like, see you later, good night. Because, it's never, to match that high. Probably why I'm not a professional footballer. One of the many reasons.
Well, you didn't retire, and you called the game. So you're still here.
If I could have done, David, I would have done. I would have dropped the mic. If I'd have got some sort of fee for that commentary, sort of perpetually, then I might have done. But unfortunately, I've got kids and shoes are expensive, etc., etc. so I got to keep blathering on. Unfortunately for everyone else. So hasn't it just been wonderful to see her, from the Instagram post, which seems like ages ago, but was only actually, January? And then now where she is with Arsenal and just looking so bright and cheerful off and on the pitch.
She's definitely got the smile back. I think that's kind of what she was saying the other day. And she just looks fitter and happier. And I actually think maybe the best is still to come from her, because when you think about earlier this season, she wasn't playing a lot of football. She's probably actually not at her peak level yet. I actually think she might reach that in the summer, which would be great for England. I think she probably deserves to start against Belgium given her recent form. Whether it's an all Arsenal front three, I'm not sure. I think Lauren James would probably get the start, maybe ahead of Beth Mead. I guess Chloe Kelly could be somebody that comes off the bench, but I just think she's been so good for Arsenal in these last few weeks that I think she probably will start. And it's great for England to have that option as well, because as we mentioned with Lauren Hemp, not maybe being fully fit or come the Euros, while her and Chloe Kelly are different, they are kind of those explosive players, those quick players, those more traditional wide players, whereas Mead and James are a bit a bit different, a little bit more about speed and kind of shooting from long range and things like that, whereas Kelly and Hemp are those ones that are going to kind of be the traditional wingers. So for her to be in form is really kind of key, and it gives England another option as well. And it's just, as you say, it's just nice to kind of see her enjoying her football again.
And actually, David, we need to talk about Lauren James. Just how wonderful it is just to watch her in action in full flow.
Yeah, I was watching some of the highlights back from the games against Portugal and against Spain, and obviously she played really well. And I was reading a piece that Michael Cox wrote about her on The Athletic, and I'd kind of forgotten actually that she got sent off in the World Cup and then comes back on at half time in the final. So I guess motivation wise, that probably play a part with her in the summer, trying to not have a repeat of that situation and really go to the tournament and be one of England's best players. But she feels to me like she is one of our key players. She's gone from maybe at one point being one of those fringe players to now being one of the key players, right?
Oh, I think she can just do things that no one else can do. And I'm not even just talking about the England team. I'm talking in the world. It's just, you can't get the ball off her, can you, Kathryn? Sometimes you just see there's usually one point in every game in the WSL where it looks like you're watching a game in the in the school grounds and they're all just chasing her and she's kind of dropping the shoulder and they're kind of bouncing off her. Her ball retention is ridiculous, and the way she strikes the ball as well, it's just so casual, and she manages to get so much power on it. I think she is a sort of cheat code in a way. I just don't think there's many other players like her.
She toys with people, doesn't she? I think I saw her do it against Jill Rudd. Like, she'd already gone past her, and then it's like she went past her again. Like, she didn't need to do that, but it was almost kind of like, I can, so I will. And yeah, she's just on kind of a different wavelength to everyone else, the way she kind of moves across the pitch. And I remember that Scotland game when England won 6-0. She was just so much better than everybody else on that pitch. It was kind of like ridiculous, really. And if she's on top form, by far she could be England's most important player in the summer. And actually, I think it's really interesting as well. We always talk about her going forward, but I think she's really matured in her defensive work this season as well. And I think she's got kind of a lot of praise from, both at England and at Chelsea, that she's actually working back to get the ball, because that was always something Emma Hayes kind of said about that she needed to work on. And I think, to be fair to her, she kind of has done that, and just adds kind of another string to her bow, I guess.
It was a great interview with her on Five Live with Lucy Bronze, actually, and she did say that Sonia Bonpastor is ruthless, and if you've not been doing your job, you'll be coming off. That there's no negotiation. And she also said that the tracking back is partly down to Lucy Bronze as well, who's been shouting at her from right back. So if if that can continue for England, then all is well, I think. Yeah, no, it's really exciting. So yeah, I think we'll leave it there, and we will reflect on the double header post Belgium. Will we be saying we're not going to get out the group, or will we be saying we're going to win the whole damn tournament? You'll have to wait and see afterwards. But my thanks to you, David.
Thanks, guys. It's been great. Looking forward to seeing these games, and indeed, I'm looking forward to getting on board. Let's not worry about, we're not going to get out of the group. We're going to win the tournament. Come on. The optimism starts here right now.
Love it. Yeah, I'm with that. I'm gonna whip my t-shirt off with the sports bra underneath. No, well, I won't do that. I won't do that to you guys. Thank you so much, Kathryn, as well. And enjoy your travels with the Lionesses.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the trip to Belgium more than Bristol. Nothing against Bristol. I'm sure it's a really nice place, but it's always nice to kind of get out of the UK when the sun is kind of shining. Although it's not been too bad here, I guess. But yeah,
it's been all right. Chocolate and beer as well.
Yeah, that's my vibe. That's what I'm thinking with Belgium. It's the home of beer, isn't it? Really, and yeah, Bristol. I don't know what the home of Bristol is, but I guess I'll find out on Friday.
Pasties? I don't know. Yes. Yeah, yeah. We'll be asking for your review of the best chocolate, maybe the best beer as well, when we reconvene. But thank you so much for listening. That's our first Lionesses pod from the England pod, and we'll catch up with you next time.